So my presentation today is about how to hack rankings with page speed optimization. And I'm going to cover today, first, why page speed is important. Second, how it affects rankings and conversions. And third, how we can hack it by optimizing it. And I'm going to use a real experiment that we run at our agency, and I will share all of the tactics that we've ended up uncovering. Sorry, let me just say. So you probably all already know 200 plus ranking factors are there in Google's algorithm. And these include, of course, the content quality, backlink quality, schema, structured data, security, but more important than before is now emerging page speed and mobile friendliness as a ranking factor. So there's been a lot of very good talks today about all of those different quality of content. So I will cover page speed and mobile friendliness. The first is, why is it important? Page speed significantly affects conversion. It takes 15 seconds, according to Think with Google, to fully load a mobile landing page. Now, it is an improvement from last year. It's an improvement by about 7 seconds, but it's still way, way too slow because, also according to Google, 53% of visitors leave the page if it loads over 3 seconds. So as page speed goes from 1 second to 10, probability of a bounce increases by 123%. So every second past 3 seconds loses you about 20% of your conversions. That is staggering. So every second really counts. And of course, speed, as it was covered by Jen, by John Myers, and by so many other speakers, it absolutely has a direct impact on your revenue. So second, page speed absolutely affects rankings. Google announced back in 2010 that rankings were going to be affected by page speed, but only on desktop searches, and then they caught up in 2018 saying now it's going to affect mobile searches. So yet, I personally have seen very little evidence of that actually being the case until recently. About a month or two ago, Searchmetrics released a very interesting study where they have analyzed 20 websites, 20 top-ranking websites for 10,000 search keywords, and they found an undeniable downward correlation. There's a clear downward trend there for higher performing websites ranking higher and lower performing websites obviously sliding down. So page speed also absolutely affects landing page experience. Now, when it comes to page search, so it affects the quality score and it affects absolutely your ad rank and cost per click. So look at this table. Quality score and CPC relationship is so strong. So taking that table and applying it to someone's budget. So say your colleagues or another department, or even you running a paid campaign in Google Ads, if you're spending £100,000, if you optimize the quality score of your of your campaigns, obviously by improving landing page experience from 4 to 7, you could save over half of that budget. Now, suddenly, it gives me an opportunity to make page speed so relevant because quite often my clients will go and say, why should I care? So yes, of course, it affects rankings, so I've heard about it. But then suddenly, if you present it in this slide, it all makes so much more sense. So John Mueller says, speed is something that does matter quite a bit to us, so, and it obviously matters to users, so that's something that I would personally take quite seriously. And what's more important, that there's so many tools out there that give you a lot of actionable, measurable information of how you can optimize it. So introducing Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a tool I choose to use, and myself and the team at Delete. It's an open source tool. You guys probably, most of you already use it. It's available in your Chrome browser. It's available on its own URL as Google Insights. So it's a simple tool where you give it a URL, it goes and performs a few checks, and it comes back to you with a very well-structured report straight away, showing you the opportunities and the savings that you could make by dealing with every problem. So with all this wealth of information, I see so many brands still not doing, I guess not score. A score is still scoring low. So, I have here ASOS website, and their performance in Google Lighthouse is just 28. But then digging a little bit deeper, you could see that their time to interactive is 12 seconds. It's a slow-ish site for a brand of this scale. I also have some of other websites in the same sector. So Boohoo, for instance, their time to interactive is a staggering 27%, also scoring 26 on performance, and Misguided is 15, just 15 plus seconds. So in these businesses, I mean, these are very successful businesses. They take very seriously their web properties, but it clearly is just not that easy anymore. Criteria is changing way too fast. Just 18 months ago, I was presenting on the main stage of Brighton SEO, talking about the effect of user metrics on your rankings and how you could take advantage of that. And right there on that slide, I'm showing how I optimized our agency's website to score 100% in Lighthouse. But that same website now just scrapes 42%. So I was thinking, well, but I did so much optimization, I followed all of the recommendations, and just in 18 months, what a difference. So what does it really take now in 2019 to get that Formula One performing website? To find out, we decided to run a hackathon. We took our search team together with our web development team, got together and decided to follow Lighthouse recommendations and try to smash it. So our R&D experiment uncovered so much. We challenged ourselves to get 100% score without changing anything visibly. So the website had to look the same, it had to function the same, the content had to have remained the same, and we could not change the platform. Everything had to be identical. And here is just a quick summary of what we ended up achieving through that hackathon and a little bit of R&D work following then. So you could see very quickly here there's a lot of positive change. And throughout this presentation, I will talk you through how we achieved all of those improvements. Not to mention that, to my great surprise, our rankings in some cases increased by about 2 pages. That's so significant. I mean, not all of them. Some only improved by about 2-3 positions, but across board, there was an undeniable improvement and nothing has changed. So using Lighthouse recommendation and doing a little bit of work, these were the areas that we identified needed the most improvement. And I will talk you through each and every one of them. So HTTP2, Hypertext Protocol, Hypertext Protocol is basically how a browser talks to a server. A browser sends an HTTP request, a server sends an HTTP response. So, and the difference is that with HTTP1, a browser can only send a maximum of 6 requests in one connection. That's the weakness. So HTTP2, which was actually developed by Google I think back in 2015, it was standardized and became supported by, well, just about every modern browser now. The difference is that that browser with HTTP establishes connection just once. And all of the resources can be loaded in that one stream. So going back to the example of Boohoo, for instance, their homepage sends about 180 requests. So if you only can send up to 6 per connection, you would need to establish 30 connections, plus they also run an HTTPS, which means for every single connection, you also need to establish encryption. So it's such a waste of time, and sometimes, in fact, some of our SEO engineers experimented and found that it sometimes takes longer to establish a connection than to transfer the resource itself. It's amazing, isn't it? The next area for improvement, a huge one, was images. And the tactics that I'm going to talk to you about today are a little bit more advanced than, I mean, we all know that you need to save down your images, not upload high-res, massive images on your website. So this is next level. First recommendation in the Lighthouse report, which you guys probably have seen if you've played with Lighthouse, I got differ off-screen images. According to Lighthouse, it said you can save almost 3 seconds on your page load just there by dealing with this issue. So differ off-screen images. What does it mean? Here I have a page, our homepage, as it loads on desktop and as it loads on a mobile device. And I've highlighted some images that we never show on when the website is presented on a mobile screen, yet we always load them. We always knowingly load them, even though definitely that user is never going to be presented with them. And that happens because we have a universal HTML and CSS file base, so which is actually quite standard for a responsive website. The next thing is serving images in next generation format. You've probably heard WebP is one famous format, again developed by Google. It just provides a greater compression, much smaller file size, and what we do is we're actually doing conversion on the fly. So we first check if a browser supports WebP, and then if it does, we convert the images into WebP on the fly. And if it doesn't, we serve the next best thing. So, and the difference is this. You can't see the difference, but the file size difference is unbelievable. The next one, in addition to all of that, was properly sized images. And the approach that my team and I ended up following, we called it adaptive image sizes. And this is when it gets really clever. Simple, but clever. So we take a standard IMG tag, which is an image in HTML, and we replace it with an SRC set, which in essence is an array of images in all kinds of different sizes. So what I'm doing here, I'm giving a browser a choice. Browser would, like, this window that I need to fill with an image is 693 pixels. So, okay, which image is the nearest size from the ones that you're giving me, Polly? And then, of course, lazy load. Not only we are deferring off-screen images, so if somebody loads a page and we know it's on a device that some of these will never be shown, we don't do it, but also we show images only and only when they come into a viewport, into user's viewport. I'm showing it to you right here. So there's a screenshot of you running a Lighthouse in DevTools. If you switch into Images tab, you can see exactly what images a browser loaded for that viewport. So because we've got some case studies below, further down the page, we're not loading them because they're not yet needed. Why waste bandwidth when it's not required? Critical, this is when it gets really clever. Probably one of my favorite parts of the entire experiment, so bear with me. So the way a browser loads a page is this. It first loads that HTML page, so requests that HTML page itself. It then finds links to all of the resources that HTML page refers to, downloads them, processes and evaluates everything, and only when that process is finished, it starts painting the page. So what we're doing, obviously, there's a lot of delay coming with this approach. What we're doing on first load is this. We inline all the necessary resources needed to paint that page into the head tag in HTML. So we only take what's needed to paint that piece, that part of the page, no more. And when that is loaded, we continue loading the standard resources that would normally be needed for the page. By doing this, when a browser performs that first action, i.e. loads HTML page, it already gets everything it needs to paint that page. We no longer need to download all the rest and wait for it to actually come back. So on the next load, we detect that the browser already has all of those resources. We no longer need to inline it, so our DOM reduces in size again. So this approach alone gives you that perfect experience. Your content loads instantly on first and on every subsequent page load. I mean, with this, you can load your page in under a second, which is way less than your average. It should load in 3 seconds. Well, I can load in 1. And then the next item on my list is only load what you need tactic. And what it is we took all of our CSS, all of our JavaScript, and every other resource, and we broke it into small pieces. Small pieces by a logical component on the website. So instead of having that one huge .css file, we have buttons.css, we have forms CSS, header, for everything, for every navigational, for every navigational element, for pagination, for example. So if the page is not showing pagination, our homepage doesn't have pagination at all. Why would I load those styles? I'm not going to. Here I've got a little example. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. I've highlighted the button for the case study, and right there I'm showing that, okay, well, because that's in the viewport, that style is loaded, and only when that button exists on the page. If it doesn't, we don't need that file. And of course, this is where HTTP2 makes this whole thing come together. You see, if you leave your website unchanged, so everything stays the same, switching from HTTP 1 to 2 is going to make absolutely no difference whatsoever, because it will still take forever to load that huge file. But if you break it all into small chunks, they can all load nicely, all in one stream. And the last but not the least is Modem JS. So Modem JS is the latest version of JavaScript. It's a much more efficient format. So it's about 300% faster to evaluate for a browser, the Modem JS, and the file size is 20% less. On the screenshot here, I have our old website and our old website and our new website. And I have highlighted that with the old one, the evaluation of JavaScript was the second most time-consuming process that the browser had to do, whilst on the new website, it's hardly there. It's very, very quick. So we're all here on a journey. We are working towards optimizing our products, our websites in all kinds of different ways. And I have learned so much just by working with my team on this experiment. And what I really have learned, my favorite takeaways is, you definitely need to unite with your development team. For SEOs to really strike that Formula One performance, find a way to work with your team. Unless you can tackle Lighthouse trace on your own, which is pretty frightening even to me sometimes. So second is, please know and tell your clients or tell your colleagues optimization, page speed optimization is no longer a one-off task. You can't, like I did it 18 months ago, and I just sat back and thinking, oh, my website is brilliant, to only discover it was only 42%. So it now is becoming the new norm. You need to be working on it and monitoring it all the time. So what scores 100% today will absolutely guarantee you not score 100% tomorrow. It is possible. It is very hard. And it will deliver great benefits in so many ways. Rankings, conversions, savings in your paid ads. But you can do it. And if you start by just tackling those areas that I have highlighted here, I promise you will see fantastic improvements. So we did it. And these are the table that I started with at the beginning. I just wanted to run through the summary of what we ended up achieving. I think a couple of talks today were saying that average in the standard number of requests is about 50. Well, it was already 36, so yeah, it was a good website, but we managed to get it down to 17 because we don't load stuff we don't need. Volume of data transferred dropped the most. That's because we dealt with all of those images and the unnecessary styles. So that was absolutely unbelievable. From 2.5 meg, we reduced it down to 0.3 meg. Ooh. And then the first page load finish, we've moved it from 6.5 seconds to just over 2 seconds, and the second page load is under 1 second. Critical loads also in under 1 second, and that speed index, which is like it's an indicator that you get in Lighthouse, has reduced by a staggering 75%, which I think is about a quarter of the current industry standard. So it really is phenomenal, and none of those things are particularly complex. They just take time. So I hope you've learned something today. I hope you you get inspired and try to do something. If you want a replay of what I have said and the areas that I have covered, please go to deleteagency.com/lighthouse, where I have described every tactic in a lot of detail. I'm providing all of the graphics, and you can get my slides. And please be brave and try it.